It was 1955. America was booming. The war was over. The suburbs were rising. Drive-in theaters, jukeboxes, and chrome dreams defined a generation hungry for progress and horsepower. Cars weren't just transportation anymore. They were freedom. Identity. And in this new world, every automaker was racing not just on the track, but in showrooms across the country. Ford had made its mark. Chrysler was flexing its muscle. But Chevrolet? Chevrolet was about to change everything. That year, they unveiled a brand new engine, something bold, something compact, something revolutionary. They called it the 265 cubic inch turbofire V8. On paper, it was a masterpiece: overhead valves, lightweight cast iron block, and a design so compact it could fit in nearly every car Chevy made. It delivered 162 horsepower at launch, and with the power pack option, that number jumped even higher. For the average American driver, it was like dropping a rocket under the hood of the family sedan. Suddenly, Mom's Bel Air could keep up with a Corvette. And it didn't cost a fortune. Magazines raved. Dealerships sold out. Chevy's ads were bursting with pride. But behind the marketing frenzy, behind the roaring exhaust notes and the smiling drivers on the showroom floor, there were whispers. You see, this engine didn't emerge from years of careful refinement. It was born in a race. A corporate race. General Motors had one goal: beat Ford's new Y-block V8 fast. Engineers were under pressure. Time was limited. Deadlines were tight. Corners, whether they admitted it or not, were cut. To the public, the 265 turbofire was a triumph. But to those behind the scenes? It was a gamble. A prototype rushed into production wearing a bow tie. And in just a few short years, the flaws would surface. What Chevy built was revolutionary, yes, but it came with a cost. And that cost would be paid in cracked blocks, engine fires, and silence from the top brass. This was just the beginning. By the summer of 1955, the 265 turbofire V8 wasn't just an engine, it was a sensation. Word spread like wildfire. Newspaper ads, auto shows, and neighborhood driveways all buzzed with the same question: have you driven the new Chevy? And under that hood? That's where the magic lived. Weighing less than 550 pounds, the 265 was compact, efficient, and surprisingly powerful for its size. Chevy had taken the old flathead concept and tossed it out the window, replacing it with something bold: an overhead valve design with wedge-shaped combustion chambers and a short stroke. In simple terms, this thing could move, and it didn't drink fuel like a monster doing it. Chevy fans loved it. Mechanics admired its layout. Hot rodders? They had just found their new favorite block. It didn't take long for the engine to show up in all kinds of places: the stylish Bel Air, the Corvette, the Nomad wagon, even Chevy's pickup trucks. Whether you were cruising Main Street or hauling lumber, the 265 promised smooth acceleration, clean throttle response, and the kind of torque that made every red light a temptation. It was fast. It was light. And it was cheap. That was the secret sauce. Ford's Y-block was good, but it was heavier, and not as nimble. Chevy had hit a sweet spot no one else saw coming. To many, the turbofire wasn't just a good engine, it was the engine of the future. Sales exploded. Chevy became America's top-selling car brand. The 55 model year went down in history as one of the most iconic designs ever produced. In Detroit boardrooms, executives celebrated. In small towns across America, dads polished their engine bays on Sundays. Chevy had given the working man a taste of V8 glory, and they were hungry for more. But here's where the story takes a turn. Because buried beneath all that praise was something no one wanted to talk about, not yet. The early 265 engines? They had problems. Serious ones. But the sales numbers were too good. The headlines too positive. Chevy had a brand image to protect, and they weren't about to let a few mechanical quirks ruin the moment. So while the public celebrated, the engineers stayed quiet. The mechanics shrugged. And the danger continued to build. Because this engine, the one everyone adored, wasn't built to last. And in some cases, it wasn't even built to survive. In the next chapter, we'll open up the block and look inside at the oil starvation, the heat buildup, the dangerously thin walls. We'll explore why this revolutionary V8, as brilliant as it was, came with a hidden countdown. And why, for some unlucky owners, that countdown hit zero. It didn't happen overnight. The Chevy 265 didn't explode, burn, or fail right off the lot. No, the damage crept in slowly. Quietly. It started with small complaints, hard starting, smoke from the tailpipe, oil that looked like tar. For many drivers, the problems didn't appear until the odometer ticked past 15,000 or 20,000 miles. But when they did, the signs were undeniable. And for some, dangerous. Let's start with the oil system, the heart of any engine. Chevrolet, in a cost-saving move, designed the original 265 without a full-flow oil filter. That's right, no real filter at all. It used a bypass system, meaning only a portion of the oil was ever filtered during circulation. The rest? It carried tiny metal shavings, carbon deposits, and sludge through the engine's most sensitive internals over and over again. Result? Premature wear. Blocked oil passages. Even camshaft failure. I opened one of those 265s up in the late 60s, sludge so thick it looked like chocolate pudding. And that was on a car with just 30,000 miles. But it didn't stop there. The next weak link? Heat. The 265's cooling system was undersized. Its water passages were narrow. Combine that with high compression, a tight engine bay, and drivers pushing the new V8 to its limits, and you had a perfect recipe for overheating. Many owners reported warped heads, leaking gaskets, and in the worst cases, cracked engine blocks. I remember steam pouring out of the hood on Route 66. Temp gauge was pegged. Thought the engine was gonna melt. To make the block lighter and cheaper, Chevy had reduced the thickness of the cylinder walls. But when mechanics bored out those cylinders for rebuilds, as was common back then, many found they had gone too far. The walls would collapse, or worse, allow coolant to leak into the combustion chamber. Rebuilding a 265 became a gamble. If you weren't precise, the engine was scrap. Then came the valve train issues. The 265's camshaft was made from soft cast iron. Flat cam lobes were common by 40,000 miles, especially with the wrong oil or lack of regular changes. Push rods bent. Rocker arms cracked. Lifters collapsed. You could set your watch to it. Around 50,000 miles, they'd start ticking. We'd pull the covers and see lobes ground nearly flat. Still not convinced? Let's talk pistons. Many early 265s used brittle cast aluminum pistons with thin skirts. When overheated, they'd crack, sometimes shattering inside the cylinder. The result? Scored walls, thrown rods, and a car that wouldn't move another inch. One mechanic called it engine shrapnel, and he wasn't exaggerating. Individually, each of these flaws could be brushed off, chalked up to poor maintenance, hard driving, or bad luck. But together? They painted a different picture, an engine that wasn't ready. An engine pushed to market before its time. An engine that was cracking under pressure. Literally. And yet, no one at Chevrolet would admit it. Not publicly. There were no major recalls. No warning letters. No redesigned filter systems from the factory until later years. Instead, dealers quietly installed add-ons. Mechanics devised workarounds. Owners were told, that's just how it is. I went to the dealership 3 times. Overheating, oil burning, knocking, they said I needed to drive it easier. Like it was my fault. Thin,